drops out of the race for the Republican nomination. A March for Life in Washington as Vice President Kamala Harris gets ready to launch a Reproductive Rights tour next week. And the S&P hits record highs on Wall Street as housing sales slump to their worst year in nearly 3 decades. Gas prices climb, and a new Gallup survey finds more Americans say they are suffering at a rate rarely seen since 2008. And what about you? Are you thriving or suffering right now? Immigration, the economy, inflation, war, it all matters right now because this is the year you get to do something about it. If you're happy with where we are, great. If not, this is the year we vote to kick out the lawmakers not doing what you want and pick the new ones who will. We are here to help you make those choices. This is California Votes 2024.
And now, California Votes 2024 with host Monty Torres.
Hello and welcome to California Votes 2024. I'm your host, Monty Torres. We are your one-stop shop for updates on the latest polls and issues you will get the chance to decide. And there is a lot to decide as voters get ready to cast their ballots. We will be here with you through the March primaries all the way up to the November general election. Give us 30 minutes. We'll give you the week in politics, what you need to know locally, statewide, and across the country to make your vote count. Now, let's get to the latest. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has dropped out of the 2024 presidential race. DeSantis made the announcement in an X video message Sunday, just 2 days before the Republican primary in New Hampshire. DeSantis suffered a 30 percentage point loss to former President Donald Trump in the Iowa caucuses Monday, and the Florida governor was badly trailing both Trump and fellow GOP candidate Nikki Haley in the Granite State. In his message to supporters, DeSantis endorsed Trump.
Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign. I'm proud to have delivered on 100% of my promises, and I will not stop now.
DeSantis said the former president is superior to President Biden and, quote, "We cannot go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear that Nikki Haley represents." Nikki Haley touring New Hampshire this week in hopes of pulling off a strong showing in Tuesday's Republican primary or even a big upset over former President Donald Trump. Haley attended a Get Out the Vote event in Amherst, visited a school roundtable in Manchester, and made a campaign stop at a cafe and bakery in Hampton, among others. But Haley also on something of a damage control tour after being accused of making insensitive remarks about racism. Haley defended her comment that the U.S. has never been a racist country during a town hall Thursday night, telling CNN's Jake Tapper,
that can win more than just this small group? Do you want a Republican that can actually win the presidency by bringing more people into our party? This is a wake-up call for the Republican Party. Do you want to go with a small amount that you keep pushing people away, or do you want to go with a conservative that knows how to talk to moderates and independents and not make them feel bad, but make them feel included?
Haley clarified her original comments during an appearance on Fox News Tuesday. Her campaign also faced criticism last month when she failed to mention slavery when asked by a voter about the cause of the Civil War. She later clarified that she does believe it was. Haley finished third in the Iowa caucuses on Monday behind former President Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. But she did not miss out on a chance to take a swipe at Trump at the same town hall event for referring to her by her actual first name, Nimarata, saying she doesn't have what it takes. Haley said, "Name-calling is a sign that Trump feels threatened."
That's what he does when he feels threatened. That's what he does when he feels insecure. I don't take these things personally. It doesn't bother me. I know him very well, and this is what he does. I know that I am a threat.
Earlier this month, Trump falsely claiming Haley is not eligible to be president because her parents were not U.S. citizens when she was born. Despite her parents being immigrants from India, Haley was born in South Carolina, making her a natural-born citizen and eligible to be president. Former President Trump, fresh off a big win in Iowa, also eyeing New Hampshire for a knockout blow, but he may not get that wish. GOP presidential hopeful Nikki Haley is trying to close the gap by appealing to independent voters who make up a large percentage of the Granite State's electorate. Trump's social media attacks on Haley and his campaign's increased spending on New Hampshire are among many signs that his team does view Haley as a threat. Julia Benbrook reports from New Hampshire.
The Republican frontrunner, former President Donald Trump, heads into the New Hampshire primary with a record-breaking win in Iowa already secured.
It was the biggest ever. There's never been anything quite like it, not even close.
But it's expected to be a closer race in the Granite State, where undeclared or independent voters are allowed to cast their ballots in the Republican primary. That gives Nikki Haley a boost.
Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't go and play in this primary. It matters.
Haley has the backing of the New Hampshire governor, and some polls show that she's been able to cut Trump's lead to single digits in the state.
Folks across the spectrum are kind of loving what she's bringing to the table. There's no doubt about it.
The former UN ambassador is not the only one aiming to pick up votes from independents, nor the only one trying to avoid a Trump-Biden rematch in November. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is trailing significantly in the New Hampshire polls, has promised his supporters he'll keep fighting.
Attention all candidates, if anyone is willing to debate, please let me know. 24 hours notice, I will be there and we will get it done.
Independents here in New Hampshire can cast their ballots for either party, and there are some Democratic candidates running long shot campaigns against Biden, who could claim some of those crucial votes. In order to comply with the Democratic National Committee's rules, Biden did not file to appear on the ballot here. The DNC altered their nominating schedule, and the first recognized Democratic primary will take place in South Carolina next month. Reporting in Manchester, New Hampshire, I'm Julia Benbrook.
And Trump getting a pre-primary boost Friday. South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott is expected to endorse former President Trump. In fact, he did come out and endorse him ahead of New Hampshire's primary. The New York Times is reporting that as well. If that happens, it would be a big blow to fellow South Carolinian Nikki Haley as she works to stay competitive in the Granite State. His endorsement could also spur talk of Scott as a possible running mate. The report says he came to the decision recently. Scott ended his own presidential campaign in November. The presidential race gets most of the attention, but there's a lot more happening both across the country and right here in California. Here's a comprehensive view of what exactly is up for grabs and what your votes can impact this election year. One note, though, this was prepared before Ron DeSantis bowed out Sunday. This year, 2024, voters will be electing a president. As of right now, going up against President Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination are author Marianne Williamson and Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips. Also in that race are independents, environmental lawyer Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and scholar Cornel West. And for the Green Party, environmental activist Jill Stein. For the Republicans, the current contenders are now down to Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, and Ron DeSantis, who is not running, at least not anymore, as of Monday's Iowa caucuses, Vivek Ramaswamy and Asa Hutchinson. They now join a host of other former candidates who've decided to drop out of the race for the Republican nomination. In addition to the race for the White House, 33 of the Senate's 100 seats are also up for election, 10 held by Republicans, 20 by Democrats, and 3 independent seats. At stake, majority control of the Senate. And in the House, 435 seats. In other words, all of them are in play, with majority control of the House also to be decided. All 52 U.S. House representatives in California will be on that ballot in November, which means no matter where you live, you will have a chance to vote for yours. Time to start thinking if you like the job they're doing or not. 40 of the California representatives are Democrats, 11 Republican. There is one vacancy in the 20th district after former Representative Kevin McCarthy resigned as Speaker of the House last month. California voters will also elect one member to the U.S. Senate on November 5th. They'll be voting in a special election to fill the Senate seat currently held by Senator LaFonza Butler, who is not running for office. Governor Gavin Newsom appointed Butler after the death of Senator Dianne Feinstein last year. The winner will fill the vacancy, finishing out Senator Feinstein's term through the end of this year. The primary on March 5th will serve as a top 2 primary. That's the 2 candidates with the highest votes will run in the general election. 30 candidates are listed as running in that primary. Ballotpedia, by the way, has identified it as a battleground primary, meaning very competitive. The next test for the candidates will be this Tuesday in New Hampshire. Republican and Democratic candidates will both take part in the New Hampshire primary next week. The first 2 Democratic presidential primaries after that will be Saturday, February 3rd in South Carolina, followed by Tuesday, February 6th in Nevada. The Republican primary in Nevada is Thursday, February 8th. 20 of California's 40 state Senate seats are up for re-election, 16 Democrat, 3 Republican, 1 open with no incumbent. In the state assembly, all 80 seats are up for grabs, 62 Democrat, 18 Republican. Key dates then for you to remember this election year. Tuesday, March 5th, the primary elections. Tuesday, November 5th, the general election. And in California, your deadline to register to vote for the elections is Tuesday, February 20th. That's 30 days from today. All right, so what is the pulse of the country right now? What are the latest polls telling us? A batch of new polls out Friday gives us a snapshot of how things are right now, and again Sunday. These polls, though, some of them were taken before Ron DeSantis quit the race, so he will be listed in the polling. A WHDH-TV Emerson poll shows former President Donald Trump with a 16-point lead in the New Hampshire Republican primary, widening his lead slightly to 53 points over former UN Ambassador and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley at 37, and Ron DeSantis was in at 10. Again, that's before he announced he was dropping out. But a new Marist poll of more than 1,000 registered voters gives President Biden a 7-point advantage over Trump, 52 to 45 in a head-to-head matchup in New Hampshire, and a 3-point advantage in a 3-way race with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. At the same time, another Marist poll gives Nikki Haley a 3-point lead over President Biden in a 2-way contest in the Granite State. In the general election, a new Harvard-Harris poll of nearly 3,500 registered voters gives Trump the win by 6 points, 53 to Biden's 47, and an even bigger 8-point lead in a 3-way election, including Kennedy. The same poll finds Haley up 3 points over Biden in the general election. In the California Republican primary, an Emerson poll finds Trump with a whopping 52-point lead with 62% to Haley's 10%. And President Biden with an even bigger 67-point lead over Williamson at 5 and Phillips at 3 in the California Democratic primary. But when it comes to a Biden-Trump matchup in California, it is all Biden by 20 points in the deep blue state, with a 54% to Trump's 34%, changing just by 5 points when other candidates are added into that mix. And a new poll in the California Senate open primary, the Emerson poll shows good news for Adam Schiff and Steve Garvey, the two lead candidates. Democrat Schiff now up to 25%, with Republican Garvey also up to 18%, followed by Porter at 13, Lee at 8, and Early at 3, Bradley and Pascucci at 2 each. Tables turned for the DA prosecuting Trump for election interference in Georgia. Why she is now the one under the judge's microscope. North Korea tests a new nuclear weapon. Why it is now warning of catastrophic consequences against the U.S. and its allies. And near record migration continues along the border with Mexico, and now a surge in illegal immigration in the north across the U.S. border with Canada. See for yourself next. After weeks of record and near-record migrant crossing at the southern border, new arrests today at a current flashpoint between Washington and Texas on the Texas border. Texas authorities arrested 10 migrants Friday at the Shelby Park area of Eagle Pass. The area is near the U.S.-Mexico border and was taken over by the state last week. Video shows the migrants on top of cargo container barriers installed by Texas on the banks of the Rio Grande. The state started arresting migrants in the area Wednesday. Homeland Security says Texas is blocking access to federally owned and maintained border barriers. Texas officials say the Texas border is their responsibility. To address the issue, Secretary of State Antony Blinken hosted his Mexican counterpart at the State Department Friday. That meeting comes just 3 weeks after he made the trip to Mexico. Blinken says he noted great progress in that short span. They're working on reducing irregular migration. He says the election of a new president in Guatemala should lower the number of migrants coming from that country. It comes as Republicans have been calling for more action at the border, demanding funding be tied to more aid to Ukraine. But now, on our northern border with Canada, a new surge of illegal crossings. Law enforcement officials reporting the new increase in illegal border crossings near Plattsburgh, New York. Exactly what is behind this latest surge not been identified, but it also serves to show how broken the U.S. border control and immigration policies are right now. One crisis may be off the table, though, at least for a little while. President Biden signed a stopgap funding bill Friday to keep the government open, dodging a government shutdown. The House and Senate passed the bill Thursday before federal funding was set to expire. The bill will fund the government at least through early March. The temporary measure extends current spending levels and buys more time for both chambers to hash out their differences for a full year spending resolution. The CR creates new funding deadlines of March 1st and March 8th. President Biden also handing out nearly $5 billion in student debt relief Friday to 74,000 people. Most of those who benefit include teachers, nurses, firefighters, and others who work in public service for at least 10 years. The rest covers borrowers who have spent 20 years paying their student loans. It's the latest in a series of smaller debt relief programs Biden's launched after the Supreme Court struck down his student loan forgiveness plan last year. And it comes as the president seeks to secure a second term in office. That now brings the total number of borrowers with canceled debt under this administration to 3.7 million. And the S&P 500 soared to an all-time high Friday, leapfrogging the previous record set 2 years ago. But for Main Street America, home sales closed out their worst year since 1995. Elsewhere, average gas prices are rising, with the national average for a gallon of gas now at $3.09 for regular, up 2 cents from last week, but 29 cents cheaper than a year ago. AAA says the slight gain is likely due to the poor weather across the country, which can affect refining operations. And one-time sports journalism powerhouse Sports Illustrated announces it is planning mass layoffs. The magazine's publisher, Arena Group, notified a significant number of employees of that move after its license to use the iconic brand name was revoked. The decision could potentially apply to all employees, and the magazine is not the only company announcing layoffs in recent weeks. In other news, North Korea is reporting a test of a new nuclear weapons system. North Korea says it has tested an underwater nuclear attack drone. According to state media, the test is in response to a recent naval exercise between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. North Korean officials say the joint exercise is seriously threatening the security of the country and warn there could be catastrophic consequences. But South Korea's prime minister says his country is not concerned.
Without those kind of provocations, the situation might be better. But we are not so much worried because we are so much accustomed to what they have been doing.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has long called the combined military exercises between the U.S. and its Asian allies rehearsals for invasion. The DA in the case against former President Trump in Georgia is now getting some unwanted attention herself. See why a judge is now asking about an improper relationship. But first, Massachusetts now says it too is considering challenging Donald Trump's eligibility to run for president. See why this time, just ahead. Former President Trump warning of chaos in the 14th Amendment case against him. Trump is urging the Supreme Court to quickly rule on his exclusion from Colorado's presidential primary ballot. In a court filing last week, the former president warned that, quote, chaos and bedlam would break out if other states followed suit and banned him from the primaries. Last month, Colorado's Supreme Court disqualified Trump from the state's GOP ballot under the 14th Amendment, ruling that he had engaged in an insurrection during the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. There are more than a dozen similar lawsuits now pending. And now Massachusetts is weighing a challenge to Donald Trump's eligibility to run for president based on the 14th Amendment's insurrectionist ban. The Massachusetts State Ballot Law Commission met in Boston to hear arguments, including whether the commission has the jurisdiction to handle this matter. No decision was made at that meeting, but one is expected soon. Trump's lawyers urged the Massachusetts panel to dismiss the challenge. His legal team previously convinced judges in Michigan, Minnesota, and other key states to throw out similar charges. The Supreme Court is scheduled to hear oral arguments on the 14th Amendment insurrection issue February 8th. But now the district attorney behind the election interference case against Donald Trump is now on the hot seat herself. A Georgia judge has now ordered a hearing on accusations against Fani Willis. Willis is accused of having an improper relationship with her lead prosecutor and mishandling taxpayer dollars. Meanwhile, new reports reveal the prosecutor paid for at least 2 airline trips with Willis while the investigation was underway. National correspondent Janae Bowens has more details on the alleged misconduct.
The DA mounting a high-profile election interference case against Donald Trump must now face a judge who wants answers about her alleged improper relationship with one of the prosecutors she assigned to the case.
We're dealing ultimately with the integrity of our elections. The integrity of the investigation is absolutely paramount. I mean, avoiding the appearance of impropriety in this investigation and prosecution is probably more important than any other case that's currently pending in the United States.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and attorney Nathan Wade are accused of carrying on a romantic affair and taking taxpayer-funded trips together. Former federal prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Jorge Vela says the allegations cannot be ignored.
At a minimum, extremely embarrassing and negatively affects the public's perception.
You saw the Fani Willis. You saw that deal? Her boyfriend, she gave him $1 million to go get Trump.
Former Trump 2020 campaign official Mike Roman has filed a motion to disqualify Willis from the case. Roman faces charges for his role in the fake electors plot in Georgia. In his motion, he says Wade has been paid an estimated almost $1 million in legal fees. He alleges Wade used those taxpayer dollars to take Willis on lavish vacations.
Isn't it them who's playing the race card?
Willis said race fueled her detractors' allegations.
I appointed 3 special counsel, as is my right to do, paid them all the same hourly rate. They only attacked one.
Reports show Willis is now blaming Wade's estranged wife of obstruction too. Willis has not confirmed or denied a romantic relationship with Wade.
Now, does it lead to a disqualification? You know, that's a little bit more of a gray issue.
Willis's hearing set for February 15th. In Washington, Janae Bowens.
Will the abortion issue help or hurt Republicans in 2024? I'm Kayla Gaskins at this year's March for Life rally, and we'll hear some takes coming up.
Thousands gathered in our nation's capital Friday for the 51st annual March for Life. Abortion is poised to be a contentious issue at the state, local, and national level elections in 2024.
The marchers came from all over the United States. Where did you guys come here from?
Denver, Colorado.
Turning the less than ideal weather conditions into a symbol of their movement's resilience.
It's exciting to be here. It's really cold, and look at all these people.
There were politicians, priests, and celebrities. Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh making an appearance fresh off winning the National College Football Championship. Anti-abortion supporters scored a major win when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, but the issue is far from settled.
As soon as that was overturned, everyone decided to come after us, and so it's more important than ever to keep sticking up for life.
We're just getting started. This is only the beginning.
Notably absent from Friday's event, any sign of pro-abortion rights counter-protesters. Democrats aiming to position abortion access as a top topic for 2024, perceiving it as a political weak spot for Republicans.
The Democrats have found their voice. They have made this top priority. Our guys, not so much. The abortion issue can really advantage our candidates if they step up and say the right things.
Marjorie Dannenfelser with Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life says they would support a 12 to 15-week federal abortion ban.
I want to save every baby, and so does the pro-life movement wants to save every baby. But we know that that's not how democracy works.
This week, Florida Senator Marco Rubio laying out a three-step strategy for Republicans to win over voters on abortion. That includes pushing a pro-family agenda, extending the child tax credit, and guaranteed paid parental leave.
Marco Rubio's plan has my 100% endorsement. It makes me wish he was running.
Data shows most Americans don't support unlimited access for abortion. A new poll by the Knights of Columbus reports 2/3 of Americans support at least some level of government-imposed abortion restrictions. On the National Mall, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
The Biden administration says this November will determine the fate of women's reproductive rights. President Biden's re-election campaign released a memo today, claiming the current GOP frontrunner, former President Trump, wants to ban and criminalize abortion nationally. Vice President Kamala Harris is kicking off a reproductive rights tour next week, where she'll urge voters to get to the polls for this reason.
Today, in states across our nation, extremists propose and pass laws to attack a woman's freedom to make decisions about her own body.
A June poll from USA Today and Suffolk University found 80% of voters, including 65% of Republicans, oppose a national abortion